She was building her cabin one log at a time. The cowboy watching was a widower longing. The frontier on New Earth was not for the faint of heart. 2 suns scorched the plains by day, and twin moons haunted the nights. Beyond the carved settlement zones, the land was raw and untamed. Forests of black needle pines, rivers that gleamed like molten silver, and prairies that stretched so far the horizon bent beneath them. Colonists who chose to live beyond the central hubs were often branded loners or foolhardy dreamers, but they were the ones who shaped civilization with blister hands and relentless will. Ira was one of them. She had arrived on New Earth alone, stepping off the transport with little more than a small trunk, a battered axe, and a determination that turned heads. While most colonists sought ready-made prefab housing from the Union supply stores, she'd struck out for the northern ridge, where the forest pressed against the high plains. She began to build, one log at a time, carving her cabin out of the unforgiving wilderness. Day after day, she worked beneath the weight of the suns, dragging fallen timber, stripping bark, cutting notches with her axe. Her hands blistered, then hardened. She spoke to no one, asked help of none. The settlement's gossip mongers shook their heads and wagered how long before she'd come crawling back, beaten. But she kept at it, her hair wild from the wind, her frame lean from labor, and her eyes burning with something no one could quite name. From a distance, a cowboy watched. His name was Joran Kale, though most knew him only as Kale. He was a widower, 5 years by now, but grief had stretched time into a blur. Once, he had a wife, Mara, whose laughter still haunted his ears. They dreamed of building a ranch together, of raising livestock suited for New Earth's plains, hardy cattle with 6 legs and hides like bronze armor. They dreamed of children, of a house filled with noise. But plague swept through the settlement before they'd carved even half that dream, and Mara had been among its silent victims. Kale never remarried, never sought another. Instead, he lived on the fringes, working his herd, tending the land and nursing his solitude. Loneliness was a cloak he'd grown used to wearing, though it pressed heavier with each year. It was during a routine cattle drive near the northern ridge that he first saw her, Ira, shoulders straining as she hauled a log twice her size, face set in grim determination. He slowed his mount, watching her for longer than he meant to. Something in her grit, in the refusal to bend, tugged at him. He said nothing, spurred his horse, and moved on. But he found himself circling that ridge more often. The beginning, 2 solitudes. Ira was not blind to his watching. She saw him sometimes, a tall figure astride a russet steed, pausing on the ridge's edge, hat pulled low against the suns. He never approached, never called out, but she felt the weight of his gaze. Some part of her bristled. She was no spectacle, no curiosity for wandering cowboys. But another part of her, a quieter, hidden part, wondered why he lingered. Her own story was one of escape. Back on old Earth, Ira belonged to a family that saw women as commodities, marriages arranged like contracts, daughters bartered for wealth and alliance. She'd nearly been sold into a union with a man twice her age when she took the chance to flee, signing on with the colonization program. To New Earth she came, not for riches, not for family, but for freedom. Her cabin was not just shelter. It was her declaration of self, log upon log, sweat upon sweat. Kale, meanwhile, warred with himself. He told his heart he was only curious, only making sure the lone settler did not succumb to the dangers of the ridge, rogue beasts, sudden storms, the rare but vicious raiders that sometimes prowled. But when he lay in his bunk at night, listening to the creak of his empty ranch house, he could not deny the truth. He was drawn to her. Still, he kept his distance. The middle, storms and building. The first real storm of the season changed everything. It came without warning, rolling across the plains like an army of shadows. Twin suns disappeared, swallowed by black clouds. Winds howled, ripping at the trees, and lightning forked violet across the sky. Kale had just finished penning his herd when he thought of her, the woman building her cabin, alone in the ridge. He cursed under his breath, mounted his horse, and rode hard. Ira had been fighting the storm herself, struggling to anchor the half-built frame of her cabin before the winds tore it apart. She lashed logs with rope, hands bleeding, hair whipped across her face. When Kale appeared to the sheets of rain, she almost mistook him for a phantom. "You'll lose it all if you don't brace the west side," he shouted over the gale. "I know what I'm doing," she shot back, though her arms shook with exhaustion. He dismounted anyway, wading into the chaos, and together they wrestled logs into place, driving stakes, hauling stones to weigh down the foundation. Rain drenched them both, mud sucking at their boots, but neither quit. By nightfall, when the storm finally broke and the moon spilled silver light across the soaked earth, the cabin still stood. For the first time, Ira allowed herself to look at him closely. His face was rugged, whether by years of sun and sorrow, but his eyes, dark, steady, held no mockery, no pity, only understanding. "You didn't have to help," she said, voice hoarse. "Didn't figure I could sleep, knowing it'd all wash away," he replied, adjusting his hat. "Storms on this ridge don't forgive mistakes." Something in his words, plain, unadorned, softened her. She nodded. "Thank you." After that night, the silent watching turned to something else. Cale visited now and then, offering spare nails, a length of rope, or advice on weatherproofing beams. Ira resisted at first, determined to rely on no one, but she found herself listening, even laughing once or twice at his dry humor. In return, she taught him little tricks she'd learned: how to strip bark into fibers strong enough for weaving, how to brew tea from the ridge's bitter leaf plants. Slowly, carefully, they built not just a cabin, but a rhythm. Still, both carried scars. Ira feared dependence, terrified that accepting too much help meant surrendering the freedom she'd fought for. Cale feared his own heart, worried that letting it stir again would dishonor the memory of Mara. Their conversation skirted around these wounds, never naming them, but always feeling their edges. Then came the raiders. They struck at dawn, masked figures riding scavenge vehicles, their weapons crude but deadly. They'd been plaguing settlements across the frontier, stealing supplies, torching homes. That morning, they came for the ridge. Ira fought fiercely, wielding her axe with wild precision, but she was outnumbered. Cale arrived in the thick of it, rifle blazing, his horse charging like thunder. Side by side, they drove the raiders back until the forest swallowed them. But the cost was blood. Ira's arm slashed, Cale's shoulder grazed by a bullet. Afterward, as she stitched or wound by the flicker of firelight, Cale sat across from her, silent. She looked up and met his gaze. For the first time, neither looked away. "You could have stayed on your ranch," she whispered. "You didn't have to risk your life for me." His jaw tightened. Didn't feel like a choice. The air between them shifted then, charged with something unspoken. The ending, a cabin, a home. Weeks passed. Their wounds healed, but the bond forged in fire and storm remained. The cabin near completion, walls solid, roof tight, a hearth ready for flame. Ira stood one evening, watching the twin suns set beyond the plains, their light bathing the logs in gold. Cale approached quietly, his hat in hand. "Looks near finished." "It is," she said, a small smile tugging her lips. "My own place, my own beginning." He nodded, but his gaze lingered on her, heavy with words unsaid. Finally, he drew a breath. "I told myself I'd live out my days alone, that what I lost couldn't be replaced. But watching you, building this, fighting for every stone and beam, I see a strength I thought was gone from this world. And his voice caught. He steadied it. I don't want to be alone anymore." Ira's heart hammered. Freedom had been her shield, her anchor, but looking at him, she realized freedom did not mean solitude. Perhaps it meant choosing where and with whom to belong. "I came here to stand on my own," she said softly. "But maybe standing on my own doesn't mean I can't stand beside someone." The silence that followed was not empty but full, like earth ready for planting. That night, they lit the hearth for the first time. Flames leapt warm and alive, filling the cabin with light. Two shadows moved across the walls, no longer separate, but entwined. From then on, the cowboy was no longer just watching. He was home, and the woman who built her cabin one log at a time found that, in the vast wilds of New Earth, she had built something greater still, a future.